starfish doing up here? You'd better dive down quickly, otherwise the seagulls will spot you and you'll end up on their breakfast plate. We wouldn't want that. Somewhat amused and happy to be distracted from her own musings, the turtle looked at the little starfish as it very carefully tried to glide, glide directly on the surface of the water. What's that supposed to be? Asked the turtle, puzzled. I'm training to float up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, so that I can see the starry sky better at night. Everything is far too blurred when viewed from below, explained Carlos. The old turtle nodded in agreement. Carlos told her that he often couldn't sleep at night, that he tries to see the bright dots in the dark sky. The bright dots in the dark sky. I would love to have such a sparkling sight down here in the water, Carlos said sadly. Unfortunately, the old turtle had no idea how to help Carlos. However, she suggested that he keep an eye on him while he did his exercises. No seagull is going to mess with me, she said, stretching her neck towards the sky. What a friendly turtle. Sally the dolphin also came by and heard about Carlos' special strange zebra you are, the wildebeest said, looking Susan over from top to bottom. Richard jumped up and stood in front of her. Who are you, and what exactly is strange about our friend? He said defensively. Don't you see it? The wildebeest asked, still looking at Susan in amazement. Now Jasper also sat up and asked, what exactly don't we see? Jasper and Richard both looked Susan up and down, up and down, up and down. Richard said, I don't see anything. That's how Susan always looks. Susan felt very uncomfortable. She had never been examined like this before, nor had anyone called her strange. She would have liked to hide completely behind her friends or crawl behind the tree, but it was too late. Now the entire herd of wildebeests stopped to stare. They were looking at Susan and mumbling to themselves. Look at that zebra, look at that, oh my god, that's strange, zebra, that's Susan, that's right, that's strange. The smallest and youngest wildebeest of the herd was the last to notice the three friends under the tree and called out happily, Look at the zebra under the tree. It only has 3 stripes. I've never seen that before. Everyone turned to look at Susan. Jasper and Richard also counted her stripes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They are right, said Jasper. You only have 3 stripes. I've never noticed that before. Now that it was vocalized, it no longer seemed particularly interesting, and the herd started moving on. Susan would have loved to vanish into thin air. Richard sensed Susan's discomfort. It doesn't matter what those wildebeests say, he said cheerfully. I never noticed your stripes before. Forget about them. Why didn't you ever tell me that I only have 3 stripes? Susan said angrily. Richard and Jasper looked at each other and shook their heads, trying to think of something to say. But it was too late. Susan lowered her head and ran away. Worried about their friend, Richard and Jasper tried to figure out what to do next. Those mean wildebeests, said Jasper. How dare they just come by and make fun of our friend? The next morning, the 3 friends had arranged to play ball with some other animals. Everyone had already started to set up the field when Susan joined them. Hi Susan, wanna play goalie? Asked the giraffe. Sure, Susan answered confidently. Richard and Jasper looked at each other. From a distance, it looked like Susan had more stripes than the day before. I guess everything's fine again, Jasper said uncertainly. Everyone positioned themselves on the field, and Jasper and Richard forgot all about it. The ball changed sides. The ball changed sides several times, and the players could hardly see each other doing with a raincoat in this heat? Asked Jasper's grandmother. Susan told her about the sudden rain shower yesterday afternoon, and that from now on she would always wear a raincoat to be on the safe side. Jasper's grandmother assured her that there would be no danger of rain in her house and took her coat. When everyone was sitting at the table, Susan gathered all her courage to ask Jasper's grandmother, who always knew everything, how many stripes a real zebra should have. What makes you think there are real zebras? That would mean that zebras who have more or fewer stripes than others are not real. Jasper's grandmother looked at the three curious faces at her kitchen table as she passed out the delicious cake. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Susan told Jasper's grandmother about the events of the last few days and about the wildebeest who had said that Susan was a strange zebra because she only had 3 stripes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Jasper's grandmother smiled and went to get an old photo album. I'm going to show you some very special friends I've had the pleasure of meeting on my many travels, she explained. The 3 friends saw animals they had never seen before in the photos. Jasper's grandmother pointed out a turtle, a panda bear, and a large kangaroo. Do you notice anything strange about my friends? She asked. What do you think? Do they look kind of strange? The 3 friends looked at each other and Richard said, No, they look very nice and like they've had some exciting adventures. Jasper's grandmother nodded. She told them that the turtle's name is Patricia, and that she is one of her oldest friends. She also pointed out that Patricia's shell has a very different pattern than other turtles. She shared that the panda bear is named Lee, and he has one longer ear that often falls into his face when he runs, and that the kangaroo called Donna has no pouch. Instead, she always carries a small backpack. Jasper's grandmother told them all about her friends' exciting adventures. There are no braver animals than these 3, she said, patting Susan on the shoulder. So, there you see. There is no right or wrong, real or fake. You are wonderful just the way you are, no matter how many stripes you have. We told you, Susan, said Jasper and Richard